Hook. Officer Martinez thought the hijabi woman sitting alone on the park bench was just another suspicious Muslim loitering near the children's playground. Re-Hook. He had no idea that his routine harassment was being mentally documented by federal judge Zahra al-Rashid, who would destroy his career and reform police training nationwide in 72 hours. If you want to witness how one officer's Islamophobic assumptions became the most expensive slap in law enforcement history, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because what happens next will expose the shocking truth about police discrimination in America. But let's go back to where it all began. The afternoon sun filtered through the maple trees at Riverside Community Park, casting dancing shadows across the playground, where children's laughter mixed with the distant hum of weekend traffic. Judge Zahra al-Rashid adjusted her black hijab slightly as she watched her 7-year-old daughter Layla navigate the monkey bars with determined concentration. Her son Omar, barely 5, was building an elaborate sand castle in the sandbox, his tongue poking out in the same focused expression Zahra recognized from her own courtroom deliberations. This was her sanctuary. Every Saturday at 2 p.m., after a week of presiding over federal cases that could reshape American law, Judge al-Rashid became just another mother watching her children play. The expensive Hermes handbag beside her contained legal briefs that would determine the fate of multi-billion-dollar corporate lawsuits. But right now her only concern was whether Omar needed more sunscreen. Officer David Martinez cruised slowly through the park in his patrol car, his trained eyes scanning for what his sergeant calls situational awareness opportunities. In his 8 years with the Metropolitan Police Department, Martinez had developed what he considered an excellent instinct for spotting trouble before it started. The park was usually quiet on Saturday afternoons, filled with predictable suburban families and their predictable suburban problems. But something caught his attention immediately. A woman in a black hijab sitting alone on a bench, watching children who clearly weren't hers. She'd been there for over an hour according to his mental timeline, just sitting and observing. Her positioning gave her a clear view of the entire playground, every entrance and exit. Martinez had seen enough terrorism briefings to know suspicious behavior when he spotted it. "Control, this is Unit 247, Martinez spoke in his radio, never taking his eyes off Zahra. "I'm observing a potential surveillance situation at Riverside Park. Female subject, Middle Eastern appearance, possible reconnaissance activity." The response crackled back immediately. "Copy that, 247. Proceed with standard investigation protocols." 15-year-old Tyler Johnson was live streaming his skateboarding practice to his modest TikTok following when he noticed a police car stopping near the playground. Something about the officer's body language made him pivot his phone camera toward the unfolding scene. His instincts, honed by years of witnessing police interactions in his diverse neighborhood, told him this wasn't routine. Martinez approached the bench with the confident swagger of someone who'd made hundreds of similar approaches. In his experience, suspicious individuals either ran or became defensive when questioned. Either response validated his initial suspicion and justified whatever actions followed. What he didn't expect was the calm, measured way the hijabi woman looked up at him with steady, intelligent eyes that showed no fear whatsoever. "Excuse me, ma'am." Martinez's voice carried the authoritative tone he'd perfected during years of patrol duty. "I'm Officer Martinez with Metro PD. I need to ask you a few questions." Zahra looked up from her book, a dense legal text on constitutional law that Martinez couldn't identify, but somehow found threatening. Her expression remained neutral, though internally she was already cataloging every word, every gesture, every violation of proper police procedure. "Good afternoon, officer," Zahra replied, her voice carrying the slight accent of someone who'd learned English as a second language, but spoke it with precise, educated diction. "How can I help you?" Her response frustrated Martinez immediately. Suspicious individuals weren't supposed to be polite and articulate. They were supposed to be nervous, evasive, clearly guilty of something. "Ma'am, I've been observing you for approximately 1 hour," Martinez said, unconsciously placing his hand on his service weapon. "You've been sitting here alone, watching children that don't appear to be yours. Can you explain your presence in this area?" Tyler's livestream viewer count jumped from 12 to 56 as word spread through social media that something was happening at the park. Zahra closed her book slowly, keeping her hands visible and her movements deliberate. Years of presiding over police misconduct cases had taught her exactly how these interactions escalated, how reasonable questions became unreasonable demands, how suspicion became justification for violence. "Officer, those are my children," she said simply, gesturing toward Layla and Omar. The girl on the monkey bars and the boy in the sandbox. Martinez followed her gesture, but his trained suspicion only deepened. The children looked Middle Eastern, which fit his profile, but something about their expensive clothes and confident behavior suggested a level of privilege that didn't match his assumptions about suspicious Muslims in public parks. "I'm going to need to see some identification," he said, his tone becoming more aggressive. "And I'll need to verify your relationship to those children." "Certainly." Zara reached slowly for her purse, aware that sudden movements had gotten people shot during police encounters. Her federal ID was buried beneath legal documents, but she deliberately pulled out her driver's license instead. Some instinct told her to let this situation develop fully before revealing exactly who Officer Martinez was harassing. Martinez examined the license with theatrical intensity, running it through his radio for wants and warrants. The name, Zura al-Rashid, came back clean, as expected, but that didn't satisfy his growing certainty that something criminal was happening. "This address is pretty far from here," he observed. "What brings you to this particular park?" "It's a public park, officer," Zara replied calmly. "My children enjoy the playground equipment here." But Martinez wasn't hearing reasonable explanation. He was hearing evasion, potential terrorist reconnaissance, the kind of calculated answers that extremists gave during questioning. Tyler's livestream had reached 200 viewers as he whispered commentary into his phone. "Y'all, this cop is definitely profiling this Muslim mom for literally just existing in the park with her kids." The comments section began filling with outrage and predictions about how the situation would unfold. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to remain seated while I verify some information," Martinez said, his hand now resting openly on his weapon. "Public parks have been targets for terrorist activity, and we take suspicious behavior very seriously." The word terrorist hit Zara like a physical blow, not because it frightened her, but because it revealed the depth of Officer Martinez's prejudice. Layla noticed the uniformed officer talking to her mother and began walking over, her 7-year-old instincts telling her something was wrong. "Mommy, who is that man?" she asked in the innocent voice that made other parents smile. But Martinez saw potential threat coordination, possible signals between conspirators. "Little girl, step away from this woman immediately," Martinez commanded, his voice sharp enough to make nearby families look up from their own weekend activities. "Go find your real parents." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Zara felt her judicial composure cracking for the first time as she watched her daughter's face crumple in confusion and fear. "Officer Martinez." Zara's voice carried a new quality now, quiet authority that made something deep in Martinez's subconscious recognize danger. "You just order my daughter away from me based on your assumption that a hijabi woman cannot be a legitimate parent." But Martinez was too deep in his own narrative to hear the warning in her tone. Tyler's viewer count hit 500 as he captured the moment when everything was about to change forever. Martinez's radio crackled with backup requests as Tyler's livestream exploded past 1,000 viewers. The comments section blazed with outrage. "This is straight profiling. Call the ACLU. That cop is about to get fired." "Ma'am, I need you to stand up slowly and place your hands where I can see them," Martinez commanded, his voice rising with each word. Nearby families began pulling their children closer, sensing the toxic energy radiating from the confrontation. Zara complied with deliberate calm, her judicial training keeping her movements measured despite the rage building in her chest. "Officer, on what grounds are you detaining me?" Her legal terminology made Martinez more suspicious. Terrorists studied law to exploit loopholes. Suspicious behavior, potential surveillance, failure to provide adequate identification. Martinez rattled off charges he'd used dozens of times before. "Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back." The metallic click of handcuffs echoed across the playground like a gunshot. "Mommy!" Layla screamed, running toward her mother as Omar began crying in the sandbox. Other parents rushed to comfort the children, their shocked expressions adding to Tyler's viral documentation of police overreach. Those children are unattended minors now, Martinez announced to no one in particular. We'll need child protective services. His words sent ice through Zara's veins. Not fear for herself, but for her children witnessing their mother's arrest. Tyler's viewer count hit 2,500 as he whispered urgent commentary. Y'all, this cop just handcuffed a mom for existing while Muslim. This is about to go viral worldwide. The hashtag park discrimination began trending as viewers shared the stream across platforms. Martinez shoved Zara toward his patrol car with unnecessary force, her hijab catching on the door frame. Watch your head, he said mockingly, using the traditional courtesy as an insult. The irony wasn't lost on Zara. She'd heard those same words in countless police misconduct cases. Officer Martinez, Zara said quietly as he secured her in the back seat. Before you complete this arrest, I have one question. Something in her tone made him pause, hand on the radio to call for child services. What question? Martinez snapped, impatient to finish processing what he was certain would be a routine discrimination arrest that would disappear into the system like hundreds of others. Zara looked directly into his eyes through the patrol car window, her voice carrying a dangerous calm that made Tyler's livestream audience hold their breath. Are you familiar with the legal ramifications of arresting a sitting federal judge? Martinez felt his blood turn to ice water as 3,000 viewers watched his career end in real time. The words federal judge hit Martinez like a freight train, carrying his entire career into the abyss. Tyler's livestream exploded past 5,000 viewers as comments flooded in. Snap. He's so fired. This cop just arrested a judge. The hashtag judge arrested began trending globally within minutes. Martinez's hands shook as he stared at Zara through the patrol car window, her calm expression now terrifying rather than suspicious. That's impossible, he stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's. Federal judges don't sit in parks. They have security details. Officer Martinez, Zara's voice carried the same authority she used when sentencing corporate criminals to federal prison. I suggest you contact your supervisor immediately. This arrest just became a federal civil rights violation with 6,000 witnesses. Martinez's radio erupted with frantic calls from dispatch. Unit 247, we're getting reports of a viral live stream from your location. What's your status? His sergeant's voice carried the panic of someone watching their department's reputation disintegrate in real time. I need backup, Martinez whispered into his radio, though he wasn't sure what backup could do against a federal judge with video evidence of discrimination. His training had never covered arresting someone who could literally destroy his department with a phone call. Tyler adjusted his phone angle to capture Martinez's complete psychological collapse. Y'all, this officer just realized he handcuffed a federal judge for being Muslim in a park. His face is priceless right now. The viewer count hit 8,000 as major news outlets began monitoring the stream. Other families in the park had formed a protective circle around Layla and Omar, their shocked whispers creating a buzz of outrage. That's Judge Al-Rashid, someone whispered. She sentenced my ex-husband's fraud case last year. She's one of the toughest judges in the federal system. Martinez fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking so violently he dropped them twice before managing to unlock Zara's handcuffs. Ma'am, Judge, Your Honor, there's been a misunderstanding, he babbled, sweat pouring down his face despite the cool afternoon air. The only misunderstanding, Officer Martinez, Zara replied as she rubbed the red marks on her wrists, was your assumption that a hijabi woman couldn't possibly belong in your version of America. She stood slowly, adjusting her hijab with the dignity of someone who'd presided over cases that shaped constitutional law. Layla and Omar ran to their mother, crying and clinging to her abaya as she comforted them in Arabic, the same language that had triggered Martinez's suspicions minutes earlier. Now those foreign words sounded like the sweet comfort of a mother rather than terrorist coordination. Judge Al-Rashid, Martinez's voice was barely audible. The department has protocols for suspicious behavior. But his excuses sounded hollow, even to himself. Every word was being recorded, analyzed, and shared by thousands of increasingly angry viewers. Tyler's live stream reached 12,000 viewers as he whispered urgent updates. She's comforting her kids in Arabic, and this racist cop literally just profiled an entire language. This is the content that changes everything, y'all. Zara's phone buzzed with incoming calls from court clerks, fellow judges, and news outlets who'd been alerted to the viral stream. But she ignored them all, focusing on her traumatized children who'd just watched their mother arrested for being Muslim in public. Officer Martinez, Zara said quietly, her judicial authority making him flinch. In 30 minutes, this incident will be reviewed by the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. In 1 hour, it will be on every major news network. In 24 hours, your department will begin the most expensive discrimination lawsuit settlement in police history. Martinez felt his pension, his benefits, his entire future evaporating before his eyes. Tyler's viewer count hit 15,000 as the most expensive racial profiling incident in American law enforcement history played out live for a global audience. The real consequences were just beginning. Sergeant Patricia Williams arrived at Riverside Park expecting a routine backup call, but the scene that greeted her looked like a media circus in formation. Tyler's live stream had exploded past 20,000 viewers, with major news outlets now broadcasting his feed directly. CNN's breaking news banner read, "Federal judge arrested while Muslim in public park," and the story was spreading faster than wildfire through social media. "Martinez, what the hell is going on here?" Williams demanded, stepping out of her patrol car to find her officer sweating bullets, while a dignified hijabi woman comforted two crying children. The crowd of park families had grown into an impromptu protest, with people holding up their phones and chanting, "Justice for Judge Al-Rashid." "Sergeant," Martinez's voice cracked like broken glass, "I think I made a mistake. A very big mistake." Tyler pivoted his camera to capture Williams' expression as she processed the magnitude of the situation. His viewer count hit 25,000 as he whispered urgent commentary. "Y'all, backup just arrived, and even the sergeant looks terrified." Williams studied the scene with 22 years of police experience. She'd seen discrimination complaints before, but nothing like this. The viral live stream, the federal judge, the traumatized children, the growing crowd of witnesses. This was a perfect storm that would destroy careers and cost taxpayers millions. "Judge Al-Rashid," Williams approached with the careful respect of someone addressing judicial authority. "I'm Sergeant Williams. I sincerely apologize for this incident. Can you please tell me exactly what occurred here?" Her professional tone couldn't mask the panic in her eyes as she realized her department was facing a civil rights catastrophe. Zara looked up from comforting her children, her judicial composure intact despite the red marks still visible on her wrists. "Sergeant Williams, your officer detained me for existing while Muslim in a public park. He separated me from my children, handcuffed me without probable cause, and called for child protective services based solely on my religious appearance." Each word hit Williams like a legal sledgehammer. Unlawful detention, religious discrimination, child endangerment, civil rights violations. The lawsuit would be astronomical. Tyler's comments section exploded with legal analysis from viewers. Section 1983 violation. This is a federal case. That department is done. Williams' radio erupted with emergency calls from headquarters. "All units, we have national media en route to Riverside Park. Mayor's office is requesting immediate incident reports. FBI Civil Rights Division has been notified." The implications crashed over Williams like a tsunami of career-ending consequences. "Judge Al-Rashid," Williams said carefully, "I want to make this right. What can we do to address this situation?" But Zara's expression had shifted from maternal comfort to the cold authority of a federal judge who'd presided over cases that had reshaped American law. "Sergeant, this isn't about making it right for me," Zara replied, her voice carrying the weight of constitutional authority. "This is about the systematic discrimination that happens to Muslims every day without federal judges to protect them. How many other mothers have been profiled, harassed, and arrested while their children watched in terror?" Tyler's live stream reached 30,000 viewers as he captured the moment when personal injustice became systemic accountability. She's not just fighting for herself, y'all. This judge is about to change everything for every Muslim family in America. Martinez stood frozen beside his patrol car, watching his career disintegrate in real time. His pension, his benefits, his reputation, everything evaporating because he'd seen a hijab and imagined terrorism instead of motherhood. The irony wasn't lost on the growing crowd of spectators recording his downfall. Williams pulled Martinez aside, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Do you understand what you've done? That's Judge Zahra al-Rashid. She's presided over the biggest civil rights cases in the federal system. Her rulings have cost corporations billions in discrimination settlements. And you arrested her for being Muslim in a park. I thought she was suspicious," Martinez whispered back, his voice hollow with desperation. The hijab, the positioning, the way she was watching the children. But his explanations sounded pathetic even to himself. Every assumption had been based on religious prejudice, disguised as security awareness. Zahra's phone rang with a call from Chief Justice Roberts' office, but she declined it, focusing instead on her traumatized children. Layla clung to her mother's abaya, asking in Arabic why the police officer had hurt Mommy. Omar's tears had stopped, but his 5-year-old eyes held a new understanding of how the world saw his family. "Mommy, are we bad people?" Layla asked in English, loud enough for Tyler's live stream to capture. The innocent question hit viewers like an emotional earthquake, generating thousands of comments expressing heartbreak and rage at the system that had terrorized these children. Tyler's viewer count exploded past 35,000 as news helicopters appeared overhead. Y'all, this is bigger than just one racist cop now. This is about every Muslim family that's been profiled, harassed, and traumatized by a system that sees hijabs as threats instead of mothers as human beings. Williams surveyed the growing media circus, news vans, protesters, helicopters, and thousands of phones recording every moment. Her radio crackled with increasingly frantic updates. Federal marshals en route. DOJ Civil Rights Division requesting complete incident documentation. Mayor calling emergency press conference. Judge al-Rashid, Williams said desperately, "What can the department do to prevent this from becoming a federal case?" But Zahra's expression made it clear that prevention was no longer possible. The damage was done, recorded, and witnessed by tens of thousands of people. "Sergeant Williams," Zahra replied with the calm authority of someone who'd sentenced white-collar criminals to federal prison. "This became a federal case the moment your officer decided my hijab made me a terrorist threat. The question now is whether your department will learn from this catastrophe or repeat it with the next Muslim family." Tyler adjusted his phone to capture the crowd of supporters now surrounding Zahra and her children, their voices rising in chants of justice for Judge al-Rashid and end police Islamophobia. His live stream had become the focal point of a civil rights moment that would reshape police training nationwide. Martinez slumped against his patrol car, the weight of his prejudice crushing his future like a hydraulic press. Every assumption, every bias, every moment of discrimination was being dissected by thousands of viewers who would never let him forget this day. The viral revolution was complete. The legal reckoning was about to begin. Williams looked at her watch, calculating the time until this incident would dominate every news cycle in America. "Judge al-Rashid," she said quietly, "I have a feeling this park is about to become famous for all the wrong reasons." Zahra looked at her children, then at the cameras, then at the crowd of supporters who'd witnessed injustice transform into accountability. "Sergeant Williams, by tomorrow morning, Riverside Park will be famous for exactly the right reasons. This is where discrimination came to die." Tyler's live stream hit 40,000 viewers as the most expensive moment of religious profiling in American police history prepared for its final act. 6 months later, Tyler Johnson stood at the podium of the federal courthouse, his viral live stream having transformed him from a skateboarding teenager into a civil rights documentation specialist. Behind him, a bronze plaque read, "The Martinez Protocol, mandatory de-escalation and anti-bias training for all law enforcement personnel." Judge Zahra al-Rashid presided over the packed courtroom, where Officer David Martinez faced federal civil rights charges. His career had ended the moment his prejudice went viral, but the real reckoning was just beginning. Tyler's 40,000 viewer live stream had generated the largest police discrimination settlement in American history, $47 million paid by the Metropolitan Police Department. "Mr. Martinez," Judge al-Rashid's voice carried the absolute authority of federal justice. "Your assumptions about Muslims in public spaces have cost taxpayers $47 million and traumatized countless families. How do you plead to charges of civil rights violations under federal statute 18 U.S.C. 242? Martinez stood with trembling hands, his lawyer beside him, as cameras recorded his final moment of accountability. "Guilty, Your Honor," he whispered, the word barely audible but captured by every microphone in the courtroom. Tyler livestreamed the moment to 60,000 viewers who'd followed the case since that Saturday afternoon in Riverside Park. The court sentences you to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years of community service, teaching anti-bias training to law enforcement agencies nationwide, Zara announced. Your prejudice will now become education for every officer in America. Sergeant Williams, who'd been demoted and transferred, watched from the gallery as her former officer was led away in handcuffs, the same handcuffs he'd used on a federal judge for being Muslim in a park. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the courtroom. Tyler's phone buzzed with notifications as his viewer count climbed past 75,000. The comment section filled with celebration. Justice served. This is what accountability looks like. Tyler changed everything. His documentation had sparked a nationwide movement for police transparency and anti-discrimination training. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler addressed his massive audience. What started as one racist cop profiling a Muslim mom has become the biggest police reform movement in American history. The Martinez Protocol is now mandatory training in all 50 states. Zara gathered her children from the courthouse steps, where Layla and Omar played with new friends whose families had supported them throughout the legal battle. The trauma of that afternoon had transformed into resilience, and their mother's fight had become a symbol of justice for Muslim families everywhere. "Mommy," Layla asked as they walked toward their car, "will other Muslim kids be safe in parks now?" Zara smiled, adjusting her daughter's small hijab with the same pride she'd felt that Saturday afternoon before everything changed. "Yes, Habibti," Zara replied in Arabic, then in English for the cameras still following them. Because sometimes one moment of injustice can create a lifetime of justice for everyone who comes after us. Tyler ended his live stream with a final message to his 80,000 followers. This is what happens when ordinary people refuse to stay silent about injustice. When we document discrimination, share truth, and demand accountability, we change the world one viral video at a time. The Metropolitan Police Department unveiled its new training center 6 months later, the Zahra Al-Rashid Center for Civil Rights Education. Every officer in America would now learn about constitutional rights, religious freedom, and the danger of assumptions before they earned their badge. Martinez served his sentence teaching bias awareness to police academies, his story becoming a cautionary tale about the cost of prejudice. His former colleagues learned to see hijabs as expressions of faith rather than threats to security. Tyler Johnson received the ACLU's Digital Activism Award for his livestream documentation, but his greatest pride came from the families who messaged him daily. "Thank you for not looking away. Your camera saved us. You gave us justice." Riverside Park installed a memorial bench where Zahra had sat that Saturday afternoon, with an inscription that read, "Justice begins when ordinary people refuse to accept injustice as ordinary." Children of all backgrounds played on the same equipment where discrimination had been defeated by dignity. Zahra returned to her federal courtroom, her experience having deepened her understanding of the civil rights cases she presided over daily. The red marks on her wrists had faded, but her commitment to justice had only strengthened. "What injustice will you document today?" Tyler asked his followers in his final post about the case. Share your stories below. Subscribe if you believe dignity isn't negotiable. The next Judge Al-Rashid is waiting for their Tyler Johnson. Will that be you? The transformation was complete. The real work would never end. But in Riverside Park, children of all faiths played together under the shade of maple trees, their laughter echoing the promise that justice, once achieved, would never be silent again. One viral moment had changed everything. Forever.